거라. Good evening, race fans, and welcome back to season number 22 of the Attrition Sim Race Campus Oval Series presented by SM Racing Products. Tonight here for round number 3 out at the Las Vegas Motor Speedway. One of the newer tracks here, relatively speaking at least, for the ASRC Oval Series. New in the sense that both had opened up back in 1996 compared to our two previous tracks that were opened in the late 50s and early 60s. But not only that, this is the second time the league has ever visited this track in 22 seasons of competition. The first visit was all the way back in 2024, won by Bryson Hicksenbog, and that was a caution-free race, so we don't have any averages or any stats here for our cautions per race because there was only one race. There was no cautions in it, so I guess that means it's an average of 0 cautions. The sister track just behind turn number 2, the bull ring at Las Vegas, that track we have been to 3 times now, and that was won by Tyler McRae twice and Garrett Hess once. But the bull ring is not what things are about here tonight. We are here for the full 1.5 or 2.4 kilometers of the actual Las Vegas Motor Speedway. And what better car to compete in it than the current 2026 next-gen NASCAR racing machine? Before these drivers start making their way down to the starting grid, how about we take a look at our point standings as they run right now? Currently, Danny Yates is in the lead of our point standings with 322 points to his name. That's going to be Ted Wallace back in second, the driver that won the first race back at Daytona with 319. Then Mike Rossi back in third with 313. Doc Jones back in fourth with 312 points. Then Jason Williams back in fifth with 307. And that's where we get to our actual first human drivers here this season. Jason Gardner, Joshua Rudolph is the one we were looking at. Rudolph back in sixth with 303 points to his name. Then Gardner and Kluge in seventh and eighth. So far, Rudolph, Gardner, and Kluge are the only 3 drivers, human drivers, I should say, that have managed to make it out to every single race so far here this season. The rest of our human drivers, well, they're all the way down at the very bottom of the standings. Both of them were only here for Daytona. That's Brian Sabelski back in 16th and Kevin Alessia rounding out the tail end of the field in the point standings right now. Of course, still a very long way left to go until we get into the chase for the cup here in season number 22. First time the ASRC Oval Series has ever tried out a new championship point style here, as we seem to be having a little bit of a struggle with the graphical overlay here. We'll see if we can't get this sorted out right quick. But as we do, drivers are starting to make their way down to the starting grid right now. And starting out on the pole of this one, it's going to be none other than the 93 of Mr. Jason Gardner. Let's see if we can't get it pulled up here now for us. See if we can't get this starting grid rolling. Looks like, sure enough, there we go. Got pulled up here. Jason Gardner in that gear wrench number 93. The league administrator himself. He's starting out on the pole here in that gear wrench entry. But his outside in the Liquid Death 154, that's going to be none other than Mike Rossi. Then back in third, we have the Exalta 124 of Doc Jones, followed by Joshua Rudolph, the driver out of Medford, Wisconsin, in the Rowdy Forever Skittles number 18, back in fourth. Then back in fifth, we have the 188 of Jason Williams in the WeatherTech entry, followed by Mick Jacobs in the 101 Kubota car. Then back in seventh, it's going to be the 45 of Mark Kluge in that Grillo's Pickles entry, followed by the 104 of Ray Parson back in eighth. Then back in ninth, we have the 123 of Emery Jackson in the Logitech car, followed by Cole Matrick in the 120 Ally entry. That's going to be Danny Yates back in 11th, followed by Ted Wallace back in 12th. A little bit further back, we got the 122 of Lamar Stevens back in 13th, Bo Johansson in 14th, and Curtis Colwell rounding out the tail end of the field here tonight. 15 cars making the call to the green flag, and the pace car is off. And heading on into the Echo Park restart zone, green flag is up in the air here for the Las Vegas 150, and Jason Gardner, I'll tell you what, off to a very, very solid lead here coming down into turn number 1. So far so good all throughout the field. We got a bit of 2 and 3 wide racing here as we have the 18 of Joshua Rudolph and Mark Kluge both trying to figure their way out around some of these other drivers. Not quite the qualifying positions they were probably hoping for, currently running back in 7th and 9th respectively. There is some battling going up towards the front, though. It looks like that initial start Jason got there did not really materialize into pulling away from the rest of the field. Of course, back at Atlanta last week, we saw a lot of these human drivers really handily pulled away from the AI car field. So looks like tonight at a more traditional speedway, maybe not quite the case here. Tonight, actually, the first traditional speedway we've had so far on schedule. Of course, open things up with Daytona International Speedway, probably the most iconic super speedway in racing. Then last week at Echo Park Speedway, one of the newer super speedways on the schedule. Wasn't a super speedway. It used to be a 1.5 mile traditional oval just like this one up until its reconfiguration that basically turned it into a super speedway in its style of racing. But now here at Las Vegas, finally it's something a little bit more familiar to the average oval racing experience. Right now, Jason Gardner is the star of the show. Mike Rossi running back in second still in that 154 machine. Well, one driver that I'm keeping an eye on is that 11 machine of Joshua Rudolph, who has fallen way down the field here, all the way back to the 11th position, down 7 from where he qualified, which is kind of a shocker this early on. Not the start he was hoping for, coming off the sales of getting his second ever league win last week at Echo Park Speedway. We'll have to keep an eye on this 18 machine, see if he can't claw some of these positions back. Of course, 100 laps the race distance, still a long way left to go here, but just definitely very interesting to see how this 18 machine has sunken since the start of this race. Up at the front, Jason Gardner is pulling away from the front of the pack once again. It's going to be Doc Jones and Mike Rossi back in second, battling it out here for the final podium positions. A little bit further back, we have a bit of, well, was briefly too wide action, not quite anymore. That's Danny Yates with Joshua Rudolph just behind. Rudolph trying to make the move down on the bottom of the speedway. It looks like he is going to make it work in that 18 machine. Of course, running a tribute to Kyle Busch, who unfortunately passed away just a couple of weeks ago, running in the Forever Rowdy paint scheme, a very fun hybrid of all of the most notable sponsors that Kyle Busch had: Skittles, M&M's, DeWalt. I believe I saw, yep, Cheddar Scratch Kitchen on there, and I think I might have saw Interstate Batteries on there as well, but I could be mistaken on that. But pretty much all of the most iconic Kyle Busch sponsors on that number 18 machine. He was able to take it to victory lane last week. We'll have to see how things go for him here this week, but currently running back in the 10th position. A little bit further up, side by side between Mick Jacobs and Ray Parson. Jacobs up on the high side in that Kubota entry, Parson down on the bottom in the 104 machine. And it looks like Parson's going to back off just a little bit and cede the position there. Both these drivers a full 2.5 second gap to Mark Kluge up in front of them. And Kluge is going down to the bottom of the speedway, going all the way down below the apron to try and get around that WeatherTech 188 of Jason Williams. It looks like he is going to be able to do it down into turn number 1. Next driver up on the chopping block, that's going to be Mike Rossi in the Liquid Death car. Still trying to get used to all the names and sponsors out here in the field, driving these AI machines. Not used to seeing them out here, but definitely a welcome addition to the league, I think. It's definitely been fun seeing these 15-plus car fields out here so far this season. But up at the front is still all Jason Gardner leading the show. Is now, it looked for a second like Williams was trying to make a move down on the inside of Rossi, but not quite able to. Going to back off and lose some of that ground, though. A little bit further back, though, it's Joshua Rudolph finally starting to claw some of those spots back. He's moved all the way back up to the 7th position, gotten around Matrick, Jackson, and Parson here in these last couple of laps. But he has to make up, well, only about 0.3 of a second to Mick Jacobs just in front of him, but then it's a 4-second gap between Rudolph and Williams. So that's going to be a much more difficult gap for this driver to make up here. But you can definitely see, compared to Echo Park, compared to Daytona, things have gotten a lot more strung out very early on. Of course, drafting is still a factor, but it is not quite just a complete draft train like you see at those super speedway style tracks. Right now, really, your top 5 have pretty much just pulled away from the rest of the field here. Jason Gardner still leading with about a 0.6 of a second lead over Doc Jones, then Kluge a second back from there. And this kind of begs the question to me of how this is going to play out tire wear wise. How is Jason, Kluge, Rudolph all going to do in terms of their tire management against these other drivers? Because you can see, particularly in the case of Rudolph, he is really pushing as hard as he can to try and get out of the deficit he was put into early on, just not the start of the race he was looking for. So we'll just have to see how things play out for him here. Of course, at these intermediate tracks like this, tire management is a bit more important than they are on the super speedways. And I'd imagine we're going to see tires fall off and overall times increase, excuse me, a bit substantially more than we saw back at Daytona. Right now, looking at the lap times, they're already a full second, if not more, slow than the best laps we've seen so far, as Mark Kluge is able to get around Jones there for the 2nd position. Right now, just taking a glance around at some of our fastest times, Jason Gardner, best time so far, a 30.7, right now setting 31.9, so a full second slower than their best laps right now, and we are only 15 laps here into today's event. I'd imagine we're going to see that deficit increase substantially more as this race goes on, particularly if it stays under the green flag. It was entirely green flag racing back at Echo Park Raceway last week, and ended up with a photo finish between Kluge and Rudolph. Rudolph just barely being given the edge over him by 1/1000th of a second. Definitely up there is one of the closest finishes we've seen here in ASRC history. And of course, both drivers teammates, so they both ended up doing donuts together after that photo finish in a very awesome battle to the line last week. Kluge is steadily starting to catch up to that 93 of Gardner, though. It's only about 0.3 of a second, the difference between them here. We can pull up here on the battle box and see just how the lap times, how the gap is playing out here. Jason continuing to lead, but Kluge is steadily closing that gap up. And of course, it's something we talked about a lot at Echo Park Raceway last week, but some of these drivers, I think, are trying to play their strategies around picking up some bonus points. The most important one is the bonus points you get for running an incident-free race, but there's also bonus points up for grabs for leading at least one singular lap and for leading the most laps here this season. So if Kluge can get around Gardner, even just for a single lap across the line, he will be able to pick up some bonus points here and possibly bump himself up the standings a couple of spots. And it looks like he might just be able to do that. He's closed the gap down to 10th of a second, now even less than that, going down to the bottom of that number 93 machine. But will it be enough to get the pass made side by side down the back straightaway? And Into turn 3 and 4, it's going to be that 45 of Mark Kluge being scored as the race leader, but Gardner comes back on the high line. Will he be scored as the leader across the line? Yes, he will. So still no bonus points to Kluge. He has led the race, at least for a small amount of time, but it was not enough to actually score him as being the race leader, and that's what counts. You have to be the leader when you come across the start-finish line to get those bonus points. It's not just a matter of being at the front of the race at any point in time. But now Kluge looks like he's pretty steadily in the front of this one, and I say that, but almost seems like he checked up a little bit coming out of turn number 4, and once again, across the line, Gardner is being scored as the race leader. Still no laps led to Kluge's name to pick up those bonus points. It seems like every time Kluge seems to pull ahead, Gardner just gets a better exit on the high line and is able to get that momentum back and get back up there. And Kluge is going to start sliding, hangs onto it, maybe, possibly, looks like he'll save it. That was quite the slide for that 45 machine, but very impressive driving skills to be able to hang on to that. Unfortunately, that's going to mean Kluge is still in the same place and not going to be picking up any bonus points for leading a lap yet. But honestly, I think we need to give him bonus points by virtue of saving that, because that was a hell of a slide there. So now Kluge is bumped back to the 3rd position, trying to hold off Mike Rossi here for the final podium spot. Doc Jones up to 2nd. And there is a full 2-second deficit, almost 3 seconds here, between Gardner and Kluge now. Kluge also now having to worry a little bit about his tires. Sliding like that is not good for them. So we will have to see how this factors into his strategy, if it does at all. But how about back in 5th? Joshua Rudolph has worked all the way back up to the 5th position, only 1 spot back from where he started now. And he is slowly but surely gaining on our race leaders. Currently 1.5 seconds back from Mike Rossi, so that makes him 2 seconds back from Mark Kluge in 3rd, but Rudolph is gaining here. Gonna wait for them to come around the corner and cross the finish line so we get some updated lap times for them here. See how these drivers are faring. Looks like our race leader of Jason Gardner last time by a 32.26. Kluge last time by a 31.87, and Rudolph last time by a 31.85. So Rudolph faster than Kluge and Gardner, but both of them are faster than your race leader. Also a 32 flat for Doc Jones and a 32.15 for Rossi. So everyone in your top 5 has set a faster lap time than Jason Gardner last time by. That begs the question, will he be able to hang on to the race lead here, or maybe those tires are starting to fade away, going full send up on the high line? Here comes Doc Jones, now closing down to 0.4 of a second and shortening by the moment. Gardner running a higher line than that 124 machine. The 124 down on the bottom. Pretty much where we saw Kluge have that slide earlier, but it looks like he's hanging on to it here pretty well. Now down to 0.2 of a second. Should be possibly setting up to make the pass here in the next couple of corners. Jones running in that Exalta machine. Of course, 3rd ever start for all of these AI drivers, but the fact they're able to contend with our race leaders and multi-time league champions in some instances is definitely a sight to see here. I said Gardner starting to pull back away here a little bit, up to about 0.6 of a second in our battle for the race lead. 28 laps in the books. A little bit over a quarter of the way into tonight's event. Still a long way left to go, though. Look around the field. Actually, the closest battle on the racetrack is the battle for last place between Lamar Stevens and Ted Wallace. Both of these drivers seemingly struggled a bit last week, and it seems like they're still struggling a bit here this week, which is particularly a surprise for Ted Wallace, because Wallace was the driver that took home the race win at Daytona to open the season up, which I mean, kind of reinforces the stereotype that anyone can win at Daytona. It's a little bit of luck there, but still, it's just crazy to see that the driver that won the opening round of the season has been finishing next to last in all of their races after that. A little bit further up in the field, Joshua Rudolph starting to close in on that number 154 of Mike Rossi. Rudolph way up on the high line, just like we've seen out of Jason Gardner. Rossi down on the bottom a little bit, but we'll see how things go through turns 3 and 4 here. Sure enough, same deal. Rossi goes all the way down to the bottom. Rudolph keeps it pinned up to the top. And Rudolph is slowly gaining, but maybe not quite as fast as he's hoping for here. But now officially 30 laps in the books. We also have a battle going on between Kluge and Jones for the second position behind Jason Gardner. And Kluge is going to send it down to the bottom, get around that 124 machine, drifts up the speedway, gets loose, tries to hang on to it. Will we see the same save twice in a row? Almost not quite. He brings it to a stop down in the infield grass. Caution flag has not come out. He is trying to get that 45 machine back up to speed. He got out of the grass, which is good to see because we were a little bit worried about a possibly beached race car, though, but definitely struggling to get the power back underneath it here. Still green flag up in the air, and now it's Mike Rossi and Doc Jones, your two drivers, rounding out the remaining podium spots as Kluge has fallen back to 7th. About to get passed by Amory Jackson for 8th. Side by side between the two of them going down in turns 3 and 4. Will we see similar issues out of Kluge again now is the big question. We've seen that this 45 machine is fast, but now with two separate slides like that, I worry that his tires might just be completely cooked off here, and that's just going to result in even more slides than we've already seen out of that 45 machine. Nearly contact just behind there between Matrick and Jackson. Jackson down on the up on the top, Matrick down on the bottom, but very close squeeze there between the two of them. How about further up as Joshua Rudolph tries to work his way around Mike Rossi to get up into the final podium position here. Nose to tail with that Liquid Death car, and he's going to pull down to the bottom of the raceway. Will he be able to get around? This is the same sort of pass that we've seen out of Mark Kluge, and in the same style, he kind of drifts up the track coming through the corner. No slide, though, so keeping it pointed in the right direction. That's going to move Rudolph up into the 3rd position, up +1 from where he qualified. How about up at the front, though? There's a battle for the race lead. Doc Jones gets around our race leader of Jason Gardner. Gardner has so far led every single lap here in tonight's event. And this time, it doesn't look like that 93 machine has any smooth moves to take the lap lead back from the prospective new leader. It looks like Doc Jones is actually going to get the lap lead to his name. A little bit further back, while Rudolph has gotten around Mike Rossi, he's not quite pulling away yet. Rossi might be able to answer back to that 18 machine. Down to 1.5 seconds between the two of them. Rossi losing a little bit of ground down the back straightaway. But he gains it back up. On corner exit particularly seems to be where Rossi is able to make up the most time on that 18 machine. Last time by, though, a 32.10 for Rudolph, a 32.17 for Rossi. So Rossi, the slower car last time around. And it does seem like Rudolph is pulling away here just a little bit from the 154 machine. There's still a battle up for the front here, as well as Gardner tries to find a way to strike back and get back at the front of this thing. Oh yes, Jones has led at least one lap now, so he will be getting those bonus points. Gardner at least can still go to try and hold the position for most laps led here in tonight's event. He's already got 35 laps out of 38 led to his name. Only needs 15 more to hit that halfway point in tonight's race and lock it in for him. But we'll just have to see how things go, because Doc Jones has not managed to pull away from that 93 machine at all. Also, while we have just a moment with things having calmed down just a little bit, how about we take a quick look back at Mark Kluge and see that slide coming out of turn number 4. Just looks like he just lost the rear end, had a bit of a wiggle trying to avoid making contact with that other car, and that's how he ended up down in the infield grass earlier. But Kluge still running right now, back in the 7th position right now. Still going strong, and he has a 3-second gap over the rest of the field right now with Cole Matrick back in the 8th position. So obviously not where Kluge wants to be, but maybe once these pit cycles come around, he gets some fresh tires put on that thing, he might be able to make some spots back here. He has definitely demonstrated time and time again that 45 machine is a very fast car. It's just a matter of keeping it underneath him, keeping it pointed in the right direction. And it looks like he is starting to catch up on Mick Jacobs here for the 6th position, down to about 0.2 of a second and gaining pretty rapidly actually on that Kubota entry. But then loses a lot of that time on corner entry, so will we see him gain it back down the back straightaway? It seems like that, for the most part, is where Kluge is making his spots up, is on straightaway speed rather than cornering speed. And sure enough, once again, falls back just a little bit from that 101 machine, but still very much in striking distance. We could see this 45 try and make some moves happen here in these next couple of laps. But already 40 laps complete just like that. And we're only 22 minutes into this thing, so it's the same sort of deal. It's crazy to see how fast these drivers are able to click off laps here. Looks like the highest top speed we've seen so far was 190 miles per hour. Most of the speeds that we've seen, roughly the 187, 186 top speed range. The Kluge is able to finally get around that 101 machine. That's going to move him up to the 6th position. A little bit further back, there's another bout going on. As the caution flag is out, what has happened? We have Ted Wallace being scored a lap down right now, so I would imagine it has to be something to do with that 143, but we also have the 148 of Curtis Colwell. Seems to be off the pace here, so I'm not entirely sure what happened. I'm not getting any reports from the truck on any incidents on the raceway, but considering Ted Wallace is a lap down when I'm not positive that he should be, we'll take a look back and see if maybe something happened to this driver. So far, nothing seems out of the ordinary here for that 143 machine. Maybe it was something with Curtis Colwell then? I'm not quite sure. No, because we were going to look at Colwell when the caution flag flew. Was there something wrong with Kluge? I'll tell you what, race fans, we have a mystery on our hands, because I genuinely don't know why the caution flag came out here. Very, very interesting, but regardless, the whole field has come down pit lane under this caution flag, it looks like. A couple of drivers still down there. Mike Rossi, Doc Jones, Rudolph still down on pit lane as well. Actually, no, it looks like Ted Wallace stayed out to get the wave around to be put back on the lead lap, it looks like. Very, very interesting. And no, Wallace is going to make the call to come down pit lane here as well, now that he is cycled back around, it looks like. I'm also very curious to see if our timing and scoring is correct here, because right now my timing and scoring is saying that Joshua Rudolph is the race leader, which I don't believe is the case. I think that's Jason that is. But we are still under the yellow flag, so I guess we can take a look back and just cycle through the cameras and see if we can't find anybody that's around. Anybody having any issues? I mean, just like at first glance, it seems like everyone is okay. Oh. Oh. Our issue was with the race leader of Jason Gardner. How did we miss that? How did the trucks miss that? This is coming out of turn number 4. Jason just loses it and heads hard into the outside wall. Very lucky not to collect any other drivers, but no, I am shocked that the truck didn't catch that. Lots of very interesting things happening in regards to the timing and scoring. It's now saying Joshua Rudolph is our race leader. The lights are out on the pace car, but it's saying Rudolph, Jones, Rossi, Williams, Gardner are your top 5 on this restart, and there are more than 5 cars here behind the pace car. The lights are out. Looks like we're getting ready to go green flag racing, regardless of what is going on here with the running order. Not quite sure. I'm perplexed as y'all are, race fans, but we're going green flag racing once again, and a very slow start by the outside line. What a kind of awful start by Doc Jones there. That outside line just had no momentum to it, and that's going to allow Joshua Rudolph to pull up to the front as the green flag goes back up in the air. And you can see the whole field immediately fanning out as Rudolph promptly loses the lead to Rossi. Again, assuming that our timing and scoring is correct here, and that Mike Rossi is actually our race leader. I'm not even positive about that at this point. If he is, I'm not sure quite how he got up there, but you know what? We're rolling with it. Whatever's happening is happening here, race fans. Mike Rossi, Doc Jones, both leading this field. Same with Jason Williams, your top 3. Rudolph running back and forth, about to get passed by the Quaker State 122 of Lamar Stevens, though Stevens is not on the lead lap. So there is still some lap traffic going on here. Is nearly contact between Gardner and Matrick there. Matrick really shoving that 93 up to the high side. As we cross the line, though, we're halfway through tonight's event, and Mike Rossi just set the... No, Doc Jones actually just set the fastest lap of the race with a 30.62. So these new tires really have a lot of speed underneath them right now. What a hectic race, though, everyone. That's up there as one of the more bizarre cautions we've had so far here this week, but everything seems to be sorted out. It looks like the running order is correct. And that is scoring Rossi, Jones, and Williams as your 3 frontrunners right now as we cross the line on to lap number 51. Currently looking down at Mark Kluge and Jason Gardner battling it out with each other with that lap car stuck in that middle of that Quaker State 122 not on the lead lap here. Both of them trying to see if they can't catch up to Joshua Rudolph, who is... call it about 0.8 of a second ahead of the two of them. It looks like drivers starting to settle into a little bit of a rhythm here on these new tires, and of course, Mark Kluge is the driver that I want to keep an eye on here in that 45 machine, because I want to see if these new tires treat him better. If he can keep that car planted underneath him and not have those spins coming out of 4 again, I think he'll be in a really good shot to get up to the front of this thing. And we're side by side coming out of turn 4 and a little bit further back. That's Curtis Colwell and Danny Yates side by side. Yates down on the bottom, Colwell up on the top, just in front. Ray Parson also in this battle here for the 11th position, just behind Ted Wallace as the last driver on the lead lap here. Wallace still, I mean, I'm still shocked by how badly Wallace is struggling after winning the first race of the season here. He's down 2 spots from where he qualified, but he's basically spent more or less the entire race as the last car on the lead lap, and speed-wise, it doesn't look like that's going to be changing anytime soon. Last time by, it was a 32.5 for Ted Wallace. Meanwhile, our race leaders are setting 51.9s, or excuse me, 31.59s. We're struggling to speak here a little bit here on the broadcast. Even a little bit further up with Mick Jacobs, Bo Johansson, Cole Matrick, they're still in the low 32s on like the 32.1 range. You can see how the battles are sort of forming around the speedway. If you pull up the track map, you can see how things are standing out just a little bit. Rossi pulling away with the race lead in that Liquid Death entry, now almost up to a full second lead over the rest of the field right now, and Jones honestly has nearly a full second lead himself over Jason Williams. So your 4 front runners have all separated out by a bit over a second from each other. Back in the back, things still fairly decently bunched up. Colwell still battling it out here with the 121 of Danny Yates for the 12th position. I'll tell you what, with that that first incident we saw, the first ever caution in league history here at the Las Vegas Motor Speedway, that makes me wonder just how the rest of this race is going to play out, because we've seen issues out of Kluge that very well could have been a caution. We've seen Gardner explicitly cause a caution now. That makes me worry, will we see any of these other drivers start to have any amount of issues here? Right now, Rossi still hanging on to the race lead with a 0.6 of a second gap now, so it has closed up just a little bit, and Williams is actually closing up pretty well on Doc Jones, down to about 0.4 of a second between the two of them. But right now, keeping the camera focused on the closest battle on the speedway between Johansson, Jacobs, and Jackson. All starting with Jays here in this battle for the, call it about the 7th position. And Mick Jacobs trying to make a move down on the bottom on that 112 machine, excuse me. He's going to make it happen. That's going to move Mick Jacobs up to 7th. Now will we see Amory Jackson move down to the bottom in that Logitech car as well. It seems like that 112 machine not quite enjoying the high line so much as some of these other cars, because Jackson is closing up to the back bumper here. Both of them losing ground to Mick Jacobs, though. Jacobs is kind of just pulling away right now. But Jackson slowly but surely creeping in here on the back of that 112 machine. And honestly, I guess we can't give Johansson too much flack, because we've just been talking about their car not looking very fast, but they're up +6 from where they're qualified. They are the most improved driver right now. But here comes Amory Jackson down to the bottom, trying to make the move work. Not quite able to. We'll see if they're not able to dive it down here into turns 3 and 4. Looks like the answer is no, not quite. Johansson able to pull up a little bit of gap on them now. And now Matrix coming a part of this picture as well in that Mobil 1 112 machine, also running where they qualified. Now 60 laps complete, 40 laps left to go here at the Las Vegas Motor Speedway. Only 1 caution so far, and only 2 lead changes. One of them being involving that incident with Jason Gardner. There's still a long way left to go. Not really any pit strategy to look at here, because it looks like basically the entire field has elected to go with the same strategy here. Every single driver pit under caution on lap 45. Every single one of them had a pit stop between 15 to about 16.5 seconds. So that, yeah, that basically means every driver in the field's running the same pit strategy here. It's just going to come down to raw pace and tire management at this point. Unless we see another kerfuffle that manages to bring out another caution flag anyways. But still, keeping our eyes down on the closest battle on the speedway between Matrick and Jackson. Matrick now moving up to the high line, trying to see if he can't make that work around that 123 machine, and that might actually just be what he needs to get alongside. Side by side, going down into turns 3 and 4. Jackson has the advantage on the bottom here, at least for the time being, but will we see Matrick make the high line run work? Not quite. Going to drop down to the bottom, see if they can't make the move down on the apron here, and they're going to get the nose to the inside of that 123 machine, heading down into turns 1 and 2, but backs out of it. Not quite confident enough to make it stick here. Jackson and Matrick, the only two drivers running where they qualified right now, with the exception of Rudolph, who started 4th and still is running 4th. But now 65 laps in the books here for the Las Vegas 150. And of course, we gotta give a moment to thank our friends over at SM Racing Products for being on board with the ASRC Oval Series for this long. It's been years now at this point that they've been on board together with the ASRC Oval Series, and definitely worthwhile to go check out at smracingproducts.com. Just a pair of drivers that, you know, a couple of years ago they were looking at the sim racing gear market, and we're looking at some button boxes and just couldn't seem to find anything that they really wanted. So they decided, you know what, how about they just go ahead and make their own? And that's what they did, and now that's what they're doing now, is making their own sim racing gear, button boxes, all sorts of cool stuff over there. So if you're in the market for some new sim racing peripherals, definitely take a look over at SM Racing Products and see what all they're up to over there. A little bit further up in the field, up towards the front, Joshua Rudolph's trying to see if he can't work his way up into the podium here. Currently hot on the heels of Jason Williams in that WeatherTech entry. Trying to make the Highline work. We've seen the Highline basically the entire race for Joshua Rudolph. And now as we cross the line, only a third of the race left to go. Will Rudolph be able to close these spots up, maybe get up to the front of the race? Of course, we were talking about just how last week got his second ever league win with the ASRC Oval Series at the Echo Park Speedway last week. Could possibly be looking for win number 3 here tonight, here at Las Vegas. Would be the first repeat winner so far here in season number 22, and that should definitely be doing him some favors in the point standings. He is going to make his way up to 3rd, though, and I'll tell you what, 1st and 2nd really aren't all that far away. You can see him just there in front of him. Mike Rossi about 0.6 of a second ahead of Rudolph. Doc Jones stuck in the middle, 0.3 ahead. Kluge and Gardner, you can see back at the top of your screen there, about 2.5 seconds back. They're battling it out for the 5th and 6th position, respectively. Coming across the line there, say 31.4 for Mike Rossi, 31.9 for Jones, 31.68 for Rudolph. So not quite the fastest car on the raceway that time by. That would be going to our race leader of Mike Rossi, but Rudolph seems like he's going to be able to get up there. He's going to pull up side by side with Doc Jones and actually make a pass down on the bottom, which not really where we've seen Rudolph go here tonight, but it's going to work out for him. Now the question is, can he catch up to Mike Rossi, who pulled up a full second gap over the rest of the field just through that one corner? So I think Rossi might have found a little bit of the boost button there. still comfortably holding it at a full second lead over Joshua Rudolph here with 30 laps left to go. And you look here around the raceway between these two drivers, Rudolph and Rossi. Coming across the line, Rossi still a little bit faster than Rudolph was. Still at pretty much a full second gap between the two of them. We'll see how things are going down the back straightaway. Down the back straightaway, Rudolph does gain just a little bit here. But it seems like turn 4 is kind of where he struggles down the front straightaway. And I say that, and that's going to be all green for Rudolph. 28 laps left to go, and this time around, Rudolph a little bit slower heading down through turns 1 and 2. We'll see how 3 and 4 work out for him coming across the line. It does seem like the gap has closed a little bit. And sure enough, Rudolph slightly faster that time around by only 1/10 of a second. So will it be enough to catch up here in these final 27 laps? That is the big question. I can imagine that 18 machine wants to finally get an interview. Unfortunately, we missed his interview last week for his win at Echo Park Speedway. I'm sure he'd love nothing more than to have the opportunity to get up here in the broadcast booth and get an interview for this one to make up for it. He's gotten the gap down to 4/10 of a second now and has 26 laps left to play with still to try and seal up that gap. So things might be looking good for the 18 machine here. Now down to 3.6 and closing. How about a little bit further back? Kluge is starting to make some moves here as well, getting around that 188 WeatherTech entry of Jason Williams. That's going to move Kluge up into the 4th spot. Jason Gardner has fallen back very considerably, though. Gardner running kind of by himself, 2.5 seconds back from this battle here for the 4th spot. Kluge now about a full second back from Doc Jones up in 3rd. And Jones, again, still 1.2 seconds back from Rudolph. Now under 25 laps left to go here at the Las Vegas Motor Speedway. Still only a single caution so far. Still playing with about almost a 7/10 of a second deficit between Rudolph and Rossi. So Rossi really just trying to hang on here, see if he can't make something happen here in these final 23 laps. Just hang on to it and keep Rudolph behind him. Of course, there is always the concern of what happens if somebody makes a mistake. What happens if another caution flag flies? With how much the field has single filed out here, I would imagine that things should be pretty okay. There's a side-by-side battle a little bit further back. Jackson and Matrick have been trading positions once again back and forth for the past lap or so. Right now, Jackson is the driver with the advantage here in this battle, running up in the 9th spot. Matrick, we'll have to see if that Mobile 1 entry is able to close the gap back up here. Currently down back to 3/10 of a second, and it also looks like Jason Gardner, or no, excuse me, that's Bo Johansson. I was thinking Gardner was possibly about to get overtaken, but that's just the battle between Johansson and Jacobs here for the 7th position. Now down to 21 laps to go, and now Doc Jones getting passed by that 45 of Mark Kluge. That moves Kluge up into the podium. That leaves Mike Rossi continuing to lead this race. Two teammates that photo finished 1 and 2 last week, now running 2nd and 3rd. I'd imagine the two of them, they're going to try and work together to chase down this race leader. It's just a matter of, can Kluge close up the 2-second deficit to his teammate up in second right now? Oh, about 2.1 seconds actually. Kluge losing a little bit of time to Rudolph that time around. Rudolph looks like he is just in full attack mode right now. He's gotten it down to 0.4 of a second in this battle for the race lead and counting. Rossi, I don't know that he's going to be able to hang on here for a final 19 laps. Not when Rudolph is pushing this hard. And there's a lap car up in front of him. That's Danny Yates looking like he's about to be put a lap down here. Will Rossi be able to overtake this 121 machine cleanly is the question. Looks like the answer is going to be yes. He pulls down to the inside. Going to make the move down into turns 1 and 2. Rudolph follows through. That 121 doesn't want to be involved in this battle at all. He's going to stay out the way. Now 18 laps left to go here. 0.3 of a second between Rossi and Rudolph. So Rudolph lost a little bit of time overtaking that 121 machine to put him a lap down there. Last time by, a 31.6 for Rossi, a 31.63 for Rudolph. So neck and neck here between these two drivers, with 18 now going to be 17 laps left to go coming across the line. But Rudolph starting to gain here once again, down to 0.2 of a second. We might see Rudolph have his moment here in the next couple of laps. Last time by, a 31.59 for Rossi, 31.57 for Rudolph. So Rudolph is gaining here as they start to come up on more lap traffic. That is, that looks like Ted Wallace they are coming up on. We'll see if Wallace interferes with this battle at all, or if he's just going to pull it up and out of the way. Wallace being closed up on, possibly getting attacked from both sides here, but no. Rossi will put it down to the bottom again, and Rudolph is going to try and send it 3 wide, neck and neck. And almost 3 wide for the race leads. There's contact. More contact there. Rudolph gets up to the front of the race. Lots of contact with that 143 as he puts Ted Wallace a lap down. Now Rossi has to be the driver to go on the attack here in these final 15 laps. Mark Kluge also starting to catch up. He might be a driver involved in this battle as well. Currently 0.3 of a second between Rossi and Rudolph, and it looks like Rossi is losing ground here. Rudolph picking up some laps led to his name. That will be some bonus points secured under the belt of the 18. But 14 laps left to go, and it looks like Rossi is not out of it yet. Kluge has lost a little bit of ground trying to get around Ted Wallace, but he has successfully been able to do so. Now we might see him be a part of this battle as well. There is some more lap traffic up ahead, though. That looks like the 148 of Curtis Colwell that they're coming up on right now. Then it's a pretty open stretch of track after that. Once they get around Colwell, I don't think they're going to have to worry about any more lap traffic. We will have to see here, but for the most part, that's what it's looking like right now. Rudolph is pulled up to a 0.4 of a second lead and gaining, though. Rossi looks like he is starting to fade here just a little bit. Will we see him try and defend against Kluge? Both drivers going down to the bottom of the raceway. Kluge down on the apron. That's going to allow him to pull alongside the 154, and looks like he's going to pretty handily move his way up into the second spot. So now we have teammates running 1 and 2, Rudolph and Kluge. It's a repeat of what we saw last week at the Echo Park Speedway with 12 laps left to go. Does Kluge have what it takes to catch up to our race leader here as Rudolph starts to negotiate away around that 148 machine of Colwell? Goes around on the high side. Here comes Kluge trying to make the high side work as well, but not quite close enough to get around here down this corner. Pulls down the inside now here, going through turn number 3. He's going to catch up to Rudolph here in this corner, it looks like. And just like that, it's now 0.3 of a second, the deficit between these two drivers, with the big double high five up in the air from Barney the Flagman. 10 laps left to go. 15 miles to crown a winner at the Las Vegas Motor Speedway. Will we see Joshua Rudolph pick up his second win of the season and third of the career? Or perhaps maybe we'll see Kluge pick up his second win of his career and get a leg up over his teammate after losing by 1/1000th of a second last week at the Echo Park Speedway. I get the feeling neither driver is really going to make it easy for each other, though. Kluge is going to pull down to the bottom of the raceway. Rudolph up high, side by side, down into turn number 1. Rudolph having the advantage here for the time being. And Kluge down on the bottom, that does scare me a little bit. We've seen Kluge have 2 big incidents pushing hard for the race lead on the bottom of the raceway. But it's still neck and neck between these two drivers with 9 laps left to go. Going to be 8 as we cross the line here. Rudolph still having the advantage. Kluge way down to the apron, almost down into the grass. 1/10 of a second separating these two drivers. Kluge almost up to the back bummer. He's going to pull up to the high side. That's not going to work. Rudolph moves up to the high side to defend. Now Kluge once again drops down to the bottom, tries to see if the bottom lane is the place to be here in this battle for the race lead. And sure enough, coming across the line there, Kluge is going to be scored as your race leader. So with 7 laps left to go, we now know that Kluge will be picking up those bonus points for leading at least 1 lap here tonight. But it's still neck and neck between these two drivers. It is still very much anybody's game. And I think these two drivers are going to be all over each other here for these final 7 laps. I don't think anyone's going to be taking it easy on each other here. Kluge now your race leader. Rudolph just behind. And coming across the line, it's a 31.7 for Kluge, 31.8 for Rudolph. Rudolph falling back now just a little bit to almost 0.3 of a second as they are coming up on more lap traffic here. That is Ray Parson just ahead. Same with Emery Jackson and Cole Matrick, all running up in front of our race leaders right now. So that will spice things up here for our final 5 laps here as Kluge comes across the line and gets a wave from the flagman. How is Kluge going to approach this lap traffic? They all seem to be pretty single-filed out right now, so if he's lucky, they'll all just keep it up on the high line and he go around them pretty easily. It doesn't look like that's going to be the case here with the 104. He's going to try and hang on to it, and Kluge has to check up to keep from making contact there. A little bit of wiggle in the rear tires, but he does hang on to it. No dramatic slides this time. Now 4 laps left to go, and Joshua Rudolph is now 0.8 of a second behind. I don't know that Rudolph's going to be able to catch up here. Nearly a full second back for the driver of that 18 machine after leading so much of this race. I think it's going to take Kluge making a mistake for Rudolph to be part of this picture again. Now almost up to a full second back. There's a lap car between the two of them. 3 laps left to go here at Las Vegas. And I'll tell you what, Rudolph is just sinking like a brick right now. Last time by 31.76 for Kluge, 32.11 for Rudolph. And now Kluge moving down to the bottom to get around Emery Jackson there. And that just begs the question of what happened to Rudolph to just completely kill his tires off. It just seems like he has no momentum left to play with here. It's going to be 2 laps left to go here for Kluge. 1.5 miles until he gets the comfort of the white flag and knows that this thing won't go into overtime. It's just a matter of getting there. And there's the 120 of Cole Matrick and the 122 of Lamar Stevens, who might just get lapped a second time here. As now Josh Rudolph's more than 1.5 seconds back. He's not even part of the battle box anymore. We come across the line. Mark Kluge going to be taking the white flag. One more lap left to go here to crown our victor. Kluge looking to pick up his first win of the season and his second win in his Oval Series career. There's beating and banging going on just behind him. That's Cole Matrick and Amory Jackson still running side by side, making contact with each other there. But both keep it pointed in the right direction, heading through 3 and 4. But it's going to be smooth sailing for Mark Kluge as he comes out turn number 4. He's taking home his second checkered flag here with the ASRC Oval Series. Joshua Rudolph brings it home second, followed by Mike Rossi, rounding out your podium here this evening. Looks like it's going to be Jones and Williams rounding out the top 5 here. But Mark Kluge getting it done here tonight. And tell you what, race fans, that means we're going to get an interview here in just a few minutes. Once we get Kluge down, get his celebrations in, get him out of the race car. And then we're going to get some words with that number 45 machine and see how he's feeling picking up his second league win. And there's his teammate there, Joshua Rudolph. Side by side last week at Atlanta Motor Speedway. A photo finish between the two of them. But it's going to be Mark Kluge taking it home this time around. Looks like he's waiting to burn it down here before he gets told the track is clear. Sure enough, race control is giving him the go-ahead. Mark Kluge burning it down here tonight in that Grillo's Pickles 45. Let's see if we can't see real quick just how long it's been since this driver has won in the Oval Series. Really quickly looking back, when was this driver's last win? It was in December of 2024 at the Homestead Miami Speedway. That was the first win of Mark Kluge. So it has been a year and a half, coming up on 2 years in the making for Kluge to take home win number 2. That said, race fans, don't go anywhere. We will be right back here in just a moment with some words with your top 3 finishers. Alrighty, race fans, welcome back. 100 laps of competition here at Las Vegas now in the books. And up here in the broadcast booth with me, it's going to be none other than Mr. Mark Kluge. It's been a bit over a year and a half since your last win, but you got it done here tonight. How are you feeling here?
I'm feeling thankful to Jason for crashing. Because if it wasn't for him, I think I was out of it after that first run.
Yeah, it definitely seemed in the early goings of this race that car was maybe having a little bit of handling issues for you. So what were you able to adjust to get that car running the way you needed it to?
I think it was just taking it a little easier on the first couple laps of the run, and that kind of made the big difference. And then I think where how I timed my passes was the big thing. I think a lot of my squirreliness came from just losing the air off the right side of the car.
Well, it definitely seemed to work out for you here tonight, and I'll tell you what, coming off of last week's finish, almost getting the win, but just falling short by 1/1000th of a second, I'm sure it feels very validating to finally be on the other end of that here tonight.
Yeah, it was an exciting finish last week with my teammate Josh, and then we reversed roles this week. So it's a good feeling to get back-to-back races with a double podium.
Yeah, I mean, 2 podiums 3 weeks into the season. Of course, we still got a long way left to go, but how are you feeling about running this next gen car? Do you think you're going to be possibly up there as a title contender?
I hope so. It I I think this is my first series kind of running this car, so um, I've been enjoying it thus far. So I think it will be a good season.
Definitely good to hear. Of course, next week going to be heading on over to Darlington Raceway, so a little bit more non-traditional over there. Are you feeling pretty confident about it?
I won't say confident, but that's always a fun track to race at, um, and try to just um, conquer and race the racetrack more than you race your competitors.
Definitely sounds like it will be a good race to watch. But of course, for now, gotta first say that I'm very glad to finally be able to have people in my broadcast booth again. It's only been, 5 months since that happened. No big deal. But you managed to get the race done here tonight. You take home a checkered flag to your name. So before I let you go celebrate, the microphone is all yours. Who you want to thank for making it happen?
Yeah, first I want to thank you, Jason, and everyone else in the league for putting it on. SM Racing Products for sponsoring the league. Um, my friends and family, my teammate Joshua, um, and then they're not on my this car, but they're on my other car. Cheesy Bites for sponsoring me.
Good deal. Well, thank you for coming out here tonight. Congratulations on taking home that checkered flag, and we look forward to seeing you next week at Darlington.
Yeah, see you next week, Aiden.
And finishing back here in position number 2, Mr. Joshua Rudolph. We didn't get to talk to you last week with that heck of a win you got, but another podium finish to your name. How are you feeling here tonight?
I'm feeling really good. Pretty happy, and congratulations to Mark for the win tonight. And again, we got a 1-2. Second time ever for us to get a 1-2, and I think any race, even whether it's official or league, and let alone he gets the win this time. I got the win last week. Banger of a finish for last week, and I think this week was pretty fun for you to broadcast there and run. Just it's kind of just super happy for how the night was because I put probably 3 times of attempting to run this combo, and within the first 10 laps, I spin out in practice tonight, and then something changed. Track temp, we got some cloud cover too that kind of helped us. Um, and these guys out here tonight were tough. The launches were not what I expected, so it made the race kind of difficult in a sense. So pretty happy. 10 scale, give a 9 on that for sure.
Yeah, it definitely seemed like you had really competitive speed all night here tonight, but just kind of faded back in like those last 10 laps or so. What do you think might have had to have gone different here for you to be taking home another race win?
Two, I would say probably from the start. So the easy answer is I think it's like lap 86, 92, somewhere in that range. The easy answer is the lappers. Just kind of got caught up battling for first there, and I had to make a move, and it was roll the bottom versus rip the top and try to keep some tire in case Mark comes because he was catching me, and I knew that if he makes the passes right, he's going to be there. So from the start, kind of got swallowed up in a sense because I had a bad restart, and then I'm like, okay, we got really good long run speed tonight because I'm catching these guys. And then Jason had his issues, and then re-rack, re-stack. I got lucky, got out the pits first, and then with that being said, that second run, that restart, they had such a good run, such a good launch that I think I started like fourth in that run. And with that being said, like Mark was talking about, time the passes. This car has an aero problem. We all know that. And you get in a spot, you're going to plow. And then this track is such throttle dependent that it is so easy to spin out. I literally twice heard my wheels squeak. I lifted. Thankfully, I didn't spin. Um, so there's a couple things, and I lost that second in traffic, and I knew that Mark was catching me on at least a tenth a lap. So the math was like 4 to go. We're going to be battling. So he got there, and I'm like, well, let's go rip the lip. If we clear him, block him in 1 because we're even, and then he's better at the bottom in 3 and 4. So let's just see how this pans out. And he got around me, so good job, and congrats for him to literally outdo us on tires and just make the car work. And man, he was bad fast. I thought 4s were good tonight in that run. He was running down 3s. So congrats, hats off, and I don't really think there's much different I can do other than the easy answer of just launch better. But that's tough. These cars they spin in a weird way. So
Well, as much as it's making it sound like this car is quite the handful, which I don't doubt it with how the racing's been so far here this season, but still multiple podiums to your name. So how is your outlook going into the next, what we got, like 12, 14, something like that races left?
I would say strongly encouraging. This car I like. It's a handful for sure, and then with a little bit of power that we're gonna have added in a couple tracks, and then some weight removal, I think, in a couple tracks, we're gonna have a really fun season. I think it's just gonna come down to restart. Just how do I launch? Because we go to a track like Darlington, all right, if you're gonna be battling in the back through the front, you're gonna burn your stuff up. And then we go to something like Texas, all right, you're just gonna have to sit there and really ease your right front. So I think it's a lot of good. I think that I have a really good chance to make the chase. Um, Easy answer just because of the top twos, but at the at the end of the day, I've been a top, I would say probably top 20% in this league, and I think that it'll be a fun battle into the chase.
I'll tell you what, race fans, it sounds like these two drivers are two we're going to be needing to really keep an eye on here for the rest of this season. But of course, for now, I won't keep you here forever. I know you got a podium finish to go celebrate. For now, the microphone is all yours, Mr. Rudolph. We want to thank for making everything happen.
The list is long, but first and foremost, thanks to K9P, everybody that's involved in it. Atkins and Terry, they're not in this league, but they do spot for us, and on other leagues and other help. And thankful for Mark being a great teammate. We race really clean, really fun, and we root for each other's success. And thank you for broadcasting. Um, Jason, for putting this together and on in other admins. And then thankful for the sponsors of For the Hobby, Joe Getty, the friends, the family, the friends of friends. And shout out to this paint scheme. I did not make this paint scheme. Somebody made it honoring Kyle Busch, one of my favorite guys, my driver for years. So whoever made this paint scheme, thank you for making a badass paint scheme. And congratulations again to Mark. What a way to get a win. Well, at one point you probably thought you were out of it, but again, congratulations, buddy. Well-deserved win and an awesome one too.
Good deal. Well, thank you for coming out here tonight. Congratulations on that podium finish, and I look forward to seeing you next week out at Darlington.
Thank you.
And then finishing back in the third position back here, that was none other than Mike Rossi, who, as you can see by the big AI tag next to their name, we can't exactly interview them, but it was a pretty good run for them, it seemed like. Actually down one position from where they qualified in that Liquid Death entry, but you know what? A third place finish is a third place finish. And since all these AR drivers are still being scored the exact same as the human drivers are, all in all, a good points night here for Mike Rossi. That said, though, that's just about all we've got here tonight from the Las Vegas Motor Speedway. It's been a fun 100 laps here in the books for this event. Definitely did not play out how anyone was planning for it to. A lot of fun, lots of chaos here tonight. But all in all, it's going to be Mark Kluge taking home his second checkered flag after a year and a half of competition here in the ASRC Oval Series. For now, though, next week we'll be seeing y'all out at the Darlington Raceway for another 150-mile event. Same day, same time, Monday night, 10 p.m. Eastern. Of course, if anyone's looking to potentially come out and join the league, we are always interested in having new drivers join us. Only requirement is to be a clean and respectful racer. That's all we're asking for. Otherwise, thank you all for tuning in, and we will see you all next time.